So, I mean, I'm so curious. I mean, how did you first meet?
Shall I start first, or?
Yeah, you start. Yes.
Yeah. So Regina would know this. We spoke about this before. But a couple of would have been run about sort of a year ago now when I started doing a year and a half started doing my transition medically, and then I changed my name on LinkedIn and so on and so forth, and I wrote a post on LinkedIn explaining kind of my name change and all that kind of stuff, and then that got picked up a little bit in the LinkedIn community. Through that, I think then one of the event that was coming up in Pride, that just happened. One of the event that happened in Pride just gone in June for Shout Out. They reached out back then to ask if I wanted to be a speaker on the panel about LGBT in the workplace. And then from there, I think then, from my understanding, I think then Dennis saw me on the website and then just saw my story from there, and then he kindly reached out, and then I got passed to meet a couple of people from the Gay Games to sort of do the onboarding process as a volunteer, and then that's kind of how I got involved. But I never actually met Dennis in person until maybe just a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. So I'd only joined the Gay Games maybe back in March, I think it was. So we've been talking on and off for a couple of months, but never actually met in person until quite recently because of COVID.
And the most bizarre story is that we live literally opposite of each other,
yes.
1 minute away. It's the most bizarre thing. Yeah, so that's really true. That's kind of funny. Yeah. So I saw your profile and then I connected with you on LinkedIn and told you more about the Gay Games. So that's how it started.
Yeah.
That's how it all started, and that's what brings you here today to our recording at #Impact Podcast. Actually, this was a much better intro than I had prepared, so maybe I should just go with this. But I actually have prepared a little official introduction as well. Are you ready to hear your official introduction for our amazing podcast community? Actually, I'm so excited to have you here today with me, because this was also a topic that our listeners really wanted to learn about and hear about. So I'm just so happy for them that they get to hang out with us now for the next 30 minutes or so. And you ready, guys?
Yeah.
Today, I am welcoming Dennis Philipse, founder and co-chair of the Gay Games Hong Kong 22. He is passionate about improving diversity and inclusion, creating a place of belonging by working together with an amazing team of volunteers to organize the biggest inclusive event in the world, the 11th Gay Games Hong Kong, that will take place in November 2022. They are open for all, and they're for the very first time hosted in Asia. This is so exciting. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Regina, for inviting us.
We are also joined by Emery Fung, a keen advocate for the LGBT plus community, especially in the corporate world, and one of the 180 volunteers that is working together with Dennis to bringing the Gay Games really to life. In his day job, Emery is a corporate recruiter. He really loves the people's business, and it really shows also in his amazing podcast, The Awkward Turtle and The Awkward Turtle at Work. So check out this podcast as well. Emery, welcome to #Impact Podcast.
Thanks for having me. My listeners will know that I had Regina on a couple of weeks ago by the time this comes out. So good to try the other side of the chair this time.
Yeah, it feels different, right? Being on the other side. Yeah. Yes. I really want to kick off with asking maybe a simple question with a very complicated answer, though. What are the Gay Games? Because I know there's a lot of misunderstandings. Also, when I look at myself, what I thought it was, so that I really want to clear up here. But, Dennis, actually, before I ask you this question, I want to take you back to that gym class that you described when you were sharing about your work at your TEDx talk. And you were sharing about this young Dennis, that kid that was standing there in the gym, never feeling part of it and feeling left out. What do you think? What would that young Dennis, that kid, say to you today as you're running this amazing inclusive event?
I think he would say that he found his place of belonging, in a place where he can find his passion and also his creativity, and also his tribe. Found his community, where he was desperately looking for at that young age. And that's about, let's say, 30 years ago or something. So in those 30 years, clearly he has evolved and working with an amazing team of people, and to build something where he's passionate about, and where he hopes that other people, and that time like himself was that young, now will be able to say, this is something I have found my belonging. So giving something back for the younger generation, so they don't have to search like he hopefully has had to search that time.
Mm. And that brings us, fast forward now a few decades, right?
Yes.
And now you're here, and you are the leading voice of the Gay Games 2022. The first time that they are in Asia. This is such a milestone also for when we're looking at the history, the 40 years history of the Gay Games. Can you fill us in a bit on what they are?
Okay, so the Gay Games started in 1982 by an Olympian, an openly gay man, Dr. Tom Waddell. He participated in the Olympic Games in 1968 in Mexico in track and field. He was a decathlist. Does anybody know what a decathlist is?
No, I was just about to say what's that.
A decathlist where you participate in all the 10 elements of the track and field. It's one of the hardest sports, actually, because you need to be very, very versatile. And he walks during the opening ceremony, as we all have seen recently with the Tokyo Games. He walks during the opening ceremony into the stadium, onto the football pitch, and applauded by thousands and thousands of people. As an openly gay man, he said, this was such a unique experience. This is something I want to give to all my other gay and lesbian friends, because it's being recognized as a human being. And so then he discussed this with a couple of friends, and then he had the idea to organize the Gay Olympics. However, 2 months before that event started, the Olympic Committee sued him for using the word Olympics. So last minute, all the T-shirts and all the merchandise had to be changed into games. And so that was the first Gay Games in San Francisco. And you know what? Who was the opening star was Tina Turner. She was performing at the first Gay Games. And she restarted her career that time, actually. And so the Gay Games changed her life. But the Gay Games since then have been changing all around the world as well. So the Gay Games, like you said earlier, are open for everybody to participate. Yeah, you don't need to pre-qualify. You don't need to be the best of your country or nation. The Gay Games is open for everybody, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, race, background. The only requirement is that you are 18 years of older. That's the only requirement. And the Gay Games have been held since then every 4 years all around the world. Most of the times in North America, in Chicago, in New York, San Francisco, in Cleveland, 2014. In 2002 was in Sydney, but that's not Asia. And then in Europe a couple of times, in Amsterdam in 1998, where I attended as a spectator. And then the last Gay Games was held 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago in Paris, in August, in the beautiful, very hot summer. So having the Gay Games for the first time in Asia, a region where 2/3 of the world population lives, and where being LGBTQ is still for many, many people a challenge compared to other parts of the world. We really believe that this event, having this for the first time in this region, will be an opportunity for participants who normally could not come because it was too far away and too expensive, will be an opportunity for those to participate, to come to Hong Kong and to participate in an event that's bigger than ourselves.
And obviously, I mean, right away when I started my research into what the gay games stand for, we here at Hashtag Impact are focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals this season. So it instantly came to mind SDG 10. I just want to bring it up for all our amazing listeners who have been educating themselves on the SDGs. To give you some context here as well, SDG 10 is focusing on reduced inequalities, and target 10.2 of SDG 10 is that, and I'm reading this to you now because I haven't memorized it yet, although I should. By 2030, empower and promote the social, economic, political inclusion of all, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or economic or other status. And I love about the gay games that the tagline for this 2022 games is unity in diversity. And that actually brings me to something that you shared with me beforehand, Emery, where you said, and I'm trying to find this beautiful quote now, where you said that I truly believe diversity is the way to go. It will make the world so much better in so many ways. And of course, having a different background helps to see the beauty in diversity. Emery, what brought you to the gay games, and how do you feel about being part of this massive operation? And I mean, there will be, let's just get that straight now on the record in the beginning, there will be 12,000 participants in the gay games. So that's kind of like the level of participants that you would see also at Olympic Games, right?
Yeah. So definitely a huge event. So I first heard about it last year. I kind of saw it on different people's websites and things, and then I kind of was a bit intrigued. I wonder what this is, because I'm from Hong Kong originally, and I've never really seen that event at that scale, especially for a sporting event, let alone an LGBT focused event. So I was kind of reading it online, just seeing sort of what it actually is, kind of like you, looking at what is it all about, and how I can get involved, and then just of different events. I kind of obviously got in touch with Dennis, and then that's how I joined. But what attracted me to actually join gay games, and why I wanted really to be involved as a volunteer, is actually quite different to what Dennis said earlier in his story, was that I was born female, but sport, and I went to all-girls school all my life, and sport was kind of the only thing that I was be able to. Sport was basically the only place in the environment that it creates that I felt safe to really be myself and kind of have that masculine touch when I was younger. So that was kind of something that I've always been very happy with, doing sports, playing sports. I was usually, if I say so myself, the first couple of ones we picked on the sports team. That's slightly different to Dennis, but that's kind of how it brought me to doing sports from a very young age. And I was born here, but I was brought up in the UK a lot, and the education is a bit different there as well. So sport was a bit more embraced, and I went on to do sports management as my degree. Now, coming back after my degree with sports management, obviously there wasn't a lot of options to choose from. And, then that kind of made me kind of feel, maybe sport isn't the way to go, or sport is not as important in Asia, especially in Hong Kong. And then I went into in the corporate world, and that's kind of I then kind of turned away a little bit with sports, which I kind of felt disconnected with sports in a way back in Asia and in Hong Kong, and then a couple of years later he comes along the gay games, and then it is exactly what I was meant to do, exactly what I studied to do for my degree, organising a big sports event, promoting grassroots, diversity, all kind of stuff, and that's really a lot of what I personally believe in, and that's why I think it's interesting to see as well is that Dennis and I volunteer at the same event, but we still have very different stories and different backgrounds on why we choose to help in these games, or why do we want to promote this message through sports. So that's one of the main reasons why I think it's such a beautiful event to have in such a big scale as well, like you said.
Dennis, when I'm looking over to you now, I mean, you're both volunteers for this organization. And Emery, you are volunteering kind of like on the side now, as you're still running you're still in your corporate job. And you did that for many years as well, Dennis. And then 2020, I think it was your kind of like that time when you said, I'm going to dedicate all my time to this. How was that for you to make that transition to say, okay, I'm going to leave behind my paying job now, but I'm actually dedicating my all my working hours now to this voluntarily?
So maybe let's go back to how the Gay Games Hong Kong started, more or less. And so about 7 years ago, I broke up with my boyfriend at that time. And I was also in between jobs. And I do lots of trail running and hiking, but I didn't really want to hang out in bars and clubs, etc. And I thought, okay, where am I going to find a new boyfriend and new friends? And then I realized that if you look at Hong Kong and compare it with other places in the world, there are not many LGBTQ sport groups. Yeah, there are lots of WhatsApp groups with friends who do sports, but nothing is really visible. So that's why I started out in Hong Kong. Which is now a Facebook group with more than 6,700 people. And the idea was really to organize weekly sport events for the community. Yeah, so when we had our first hike event in August 2014, and we had about 50 people coming to Dragonback on a beautiful Sunday morning. And that was really a great way to meet new people. Yeah, because somebody falls and somebody gets cramps, and you really see people connecting with each other. So then I realized this is a nice way to connect people together and something positive for the community, which Hong Kong doesn't have. And since then, we used to organize, before COVID, we used to organize every week 2-3 events, running, tennis, badminton, swimming. We did beach cleanups. We did camping with 60 people. It was really a nice way to meet different people and to also to come out of your comfort zone. Yeah? Because normally if you go to a bar, you would talk to people who look like you or who you think attractive. But imagine that 3 of us will go on a hike, and we somebody falls, there's a connection, right? Something you will never forget in your life anymore. So you're really changing people's lives, and also you're building lifelong friendships. So it was really positive. And out in Hong Kong is still growing. We also started out in Singapore with 7,000 people. So that has really been quite successful in Asia. But then a couple of years later, after out in Hong Kong, I remembered the Gay Games, which I attended in Amsterdam in 1998. Unfortunately, I did not participate. I was just spectating. I went to the opening ceremony and went to all the other events. And then I thought, wow, that was such an amazing event in Amsterdam. They had 14,000 participants from all around the world. Can you imagine? That was just the time there was hardly internet, so they must have used faxes for people, people registration forms, etc. And then I thought, wow, this is really great. And then I reached out to the Federation of Gay Games, which is like the governing body, and to say, hey, how can we bring the Gay Games for the first time to Asia, to Hong Kong? And then literally 5 years ago, we started a bidding process. Yeah, and the bidding process is a bit like the bidding process for the IOC, where you had to submit a bid book proposal, and then we were bidding against 17 other cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco. And the bid book proposal was 300 pages, where you have to describe your plans, the venues, everything what you want to do. And then about in 2017, we got shortlisted against Washington, D.C. and Guadalajara in Mexico. And we had to organize site visit inspectors came to Hong Kong, and we had to show them around about Hong Kong, how beautiful Hong Kong is, how safe it is, the great venues Hong Kong has. And then in November 2017, we went to Paris for the final presentations next to the other bidding cities. And then we got voted by the Federation of Gay Games delegates. And I all did it. We had a team that time, around maybe 20, 30 people, all volunteers. And yes, it was quite a struggle to do it next to the full-time job, because this took quite some time. So then last year, a good friend of mine, around, I think he was 42 or so, And he was in a very famous trail runner in Hong Kong, and he got brain cancer. And at a certain point, he got a surgery. He also got unfortunately got paralyzed, and then he passed away. And that was for me such a eye opener that I thought, wow, this is on such a young age. He what was such an impact. Then I realized, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my life. What will be my plans for the next 5 years? Yeah, and a friend of mine said, imagine that somebody tells you that you only have 6 months to live. What are you going to do? What impact do you want to create? Yeah, are you going to sit on an island? Are you going to write a book? Are you going to give something back to the community? And having that discussion then for me was a moment where I was, fortunately, I'm in a financial position that I can make the decision to say I'm not taking a break, because a break means not working. I'm taking a break from paid professional life and spend the next 2 years focusing as a volunteer together with amazing other volunteers organizing the gay games. And afterwards I'm going to work again. Yeah, I still need money from it. But at least for now, having that opportunity where I just can focus on purely one thing rather than having a full-time job and juggling with the gay games. Because the gay games, for me at the moment, is about 60 hours a week. Yeah, we have a couple of other people who have made the same decision. They parked their professional life to purely focus on the gay games as a volunteer, because we believe this is something good for Hong Kong, believe this is the right moment, but also it's an amazing experience, right? Like you said, this is the scale, nearly the same size of the Olympic Games, with 12,000 participants, 9 days, 36 sports. So it's an amazing experience as well on my CV.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about your friend Dennis. That must have been, I'm just sorry that happened. And I feel very moved by that step you took, to then say, you know what, in the end, if you make money, of course, that's important. You're going to make the money to live. And I love that also that you brought that up, Emery, in one of your latest episodes on your podcast, that when you're looking at these passion careers and people are taking these decisions, that of course it has to be financially responsible, right? So Dennis, you said you have the privilege that you had to have the savings that you can take that time now for that. But isn't that an amazing way to use that privilege that you have now, and for what you worked hard, right? Because you had a busy job and you saved up and you made smart financial decisions that you're able to do that now. I mean, it's just amazing. And I mean, looking at the impact that you're creating with the gay games, I loved what you shared about that, Dennis, on your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, I was really sneaky. I looked at all of the things you were posting recently. So I loved where you shared one of the impacts of the gay games is breaking down stereotypes of being LGBTQ+ and connecting the community at large through sports, arts, and culture events open for all. There's also the economic impact, just a side note, of an expected 1 billion Hong Kong dollar or US $128 million for businesses and that it will bring to the city. So, I mean, of course, there is that note as well. But actually, I'm always all about the, let's look even deeper, besides that economic impact that it would have. Like, I also want to look at the personal level. And Emery, I'm looking over at you now, because let's look at the volunteers involved and the people that are now being part of this. And I know that that volunteering also impacted you in how you share about gender roles, right, Emery? And also, for example, with your parents. And I'm only bringing this up because you said it was okay to bring up. Yeah. So you identify as male and you started your transition process medically last year. And then you shared something with me when we recorded our podcast interview, actually, for your podcast, right? That had these, all of a sudden you're having these conversations with your parents about, I'm not going to say more. You say how that impacted you.
Yeah, so a bit of context. So my family, I would say, a very traditional, typical Cantonese family, where I think they still believe very much in the kind of traditional gender roles, where what a man should be doing, what a woman should be doing, what their roles are in the household, and how work should be. You should kind of be, get a good. Go to good school, get good grades, go to a good university, get a stable job, buy a house, all that kind of stuff. Get married, have kids, right? So when I first, well, it's weird saying this because I hate using the word coming out, but when I first came out to my parents, that was when I was like 14, 15 years old. That I was interested in girls, people with my same sex back then. That obviously was already a hard conversation to have. Being 15, as a teenager, being in that rebellious kind of age, living abroad away from my parents. So that was a big sort of clash already. And then, a very typical style that we never really speak about things like feelings and just thoughts, right? We just talk about what the next step should be, what's the school I should go to, what degree I should choose, what job I should get into once I get out of university, all that kind of stuff. And so we never really spoke about any of this up until really recently. So when I first joined the gay games, I mentioned this to my parents. Of course, the context was close to zero at that point. They were just like, "Oh, it sounds like a sports event." They knew I did sports management degree. They were like, "Yeah, okay, just do that." Didn't really think too much about it. And then, of course, since then, the news has picked up a bit more about gay games in Hong Kong and so on and so forth. And it just so happens that I also did a speaking engagement on LGBT workplace a couple of months ago now, and we spoke about it, and then my parents checked in on me and said, "Oh, we actually heard your seminar thing." It was all in English, so I was also quite surprised that they listened to it because they didn't really speak in English. My dad does a little bit, but not in a way that he doesn't use it on a daily basis, and he uses like a very formal written English. So I was very surprised that they listened to the whole hour of that talk. And then I was like, "Oh, so like, what did you think of it?" And in a very typical Cantonese style, they kind of just said, "Yeah, we just talked about, your barriers at work." And that was it. And then I said, "Well, we've got to this stage. I have to ask more questions." And then I said, "Oh, do you remember I mentioned that I'm volunteering at the Gay Games? You must have heard about it in the news recently, right?" And then that kind of basically, from that question on, it sparked an hour conversation with my mum about what gender roles are and what she thought about being LGBT, being LGBT at work, being LGBT in society, especially in Asia and Hong Kong. And that has never happened. I've never really sat down with my mum and talked for an hour, let alone on a phone call.
Wow.
On actual feelings and about society and all that kind of stuff. So, that gave me a really good insight about, these kind of gay games or these kind of events, these kind of speaking opportunities we get in now, especially during Pride Month, it is really spreading that message to even people who are not in touch with, let's say, the corporate world, who are not into sports, who just, the general public. And then, because of these platforms, I had more confidence as well to speak about this kind of things to my parents, which I don't think I would have had 3 years ago, or maybe same time without volunteering at the gay games. I don't think I'll even dare to ask a question like that. So it was really insightful, and it gave me a lot of, I guess, a bit more encouragement to do more as well. And since now I've shared this with my friends as well, and I've said, if I can talk about this with my parents, I think a lot of people can also talk about things that they don't traditionally talk about with their parents, whether you're not LGBT in the community or you're just an ordinary person who is chasing a dream, who wants to maybe did a law degree because your parents wanted you to, but actually you don't really fancy a law degree, for example. So I think the message is that I think people now in general are a lot more open to just different people in the world, and because of media, because of the technology, because of all these events, it's really opening up people's eyes and in many ways that I did not expect.
Wow, I get tears in my eye, Emery, about when you mentioned this. This is quite touching, actually. And I think that's also right, because the Gay Games is an event next year in November. But I think the journey to that and having these discussions, and again, we're not a political organization. We talk about human rights or marriage equality, etc. For us, it's really the purpose of the Gay Games is bringing people from all around worlds together, using sports, arts and culture, and then the community, but also some fun to create positive attitudes. Yeah, and we really believe in the universal power of sports, because it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, what your religion is, your own sexual orientation. In sport, everybody is equal. Yeah, and I think that's amazing, because you go and play sport with somebody else from the other side of the world, and you change your perceptions about people being LGBTQ. So in a way, we're creating also those starting points. But hearing your story, thank you for sharing that. That's quite touching, actually. Emery, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you for me reaching out as well, because I don't think I would have had just the idea or even speak about these things. So I really genuinely hope that when from kind of here now on to the actual event as well, it's going to drive. I think the basic kind of for me is that it's just going to drive more conversations, right? I don't think Dennis and I or anyone in the volunteering within Gay Games, we are kind of thinking that, once the event happens, everyone's going to be super embracive of LGBT, everyone's going to be over the moon of us. And I think it's just the point is just making that, letting people know that we're just not that, we're not that different. We're just anyone who walks on the street, who has a job, who has a family, who has cousins, all that kind of stuff. And, the main thing is just, drive more conversations.
I always talk about the snowball. Yeah? In Austria, where Regina comes from, there's lots of snow and lots of mountains. So imagine that you build a snowball and you bring it to the top of a mountain and you drop it. The snowball gets bigger, 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 and becomes unstoppable, right? And I think that's also how I talk about the Gay Games. It becomes unstoppable, inevitable. It's going to happen. It's a one-off opportunity once in your lifetime to be involved in this event, and it's a great experience. But yes, I always see 3 stages: the build-up, organizing the event. Then secondly is the event itself, the 9 days event. But then afterwards, the real impact starts, because people who have participated in the Gay Games, they go back to their communities, to their countries, and there they start telling their stories. They start building LGBTQ sport groups, and then you really will see how the impact, the legacy will continue. Yeah, so that's the most important element more here as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, for you on a personal note, Dennis, you're one of the moments that impacted you personally. I'm sure there were so many. I mean, I brought up before, when the Cathay pilots, they flew you back after you won the games, and they actually announced it in the plane, welcoming you back, bringing the, I get goosebumps, bringing the games home, so to say, right? Home to Hong Kong. But I imagine that these moments, and I guess maybe Emery's stories was now one of them as well. Yeah, that you have to kind of, no matter in what kind of change-making business you are in, you have to kind of collect these moments of impact and memories that keep you going on those days when you're like, oh my God, are we even going to be able to do this? I mean, we're living through a pandemic still. It's so unexpected, like so unexpected, but what is the word for it? Like, you have no way to plan certain things. And I heard this in another interview, that you're also really good at having all these contingency plans as well. Like, you're really putting all the scenarios in place as well. Like, what if that would happen? What if that would happen? So that you can go ahead organizing this and running it as safely and just running it, right? No matter what happens. But how is that? What is there some moments that you think back of when you face these massive setbacks where you doubt, like, why am I even doing this?
Oh, yes. I think everybody has had those moments, right? And especially because it's such a long period. Yeah, we've been working on this already for 5 years. We still have more than 1.5 year to go. And there are moments where you think, okay, why is this happening? On the other hand, moments like what Emery just mentioned are the moments which sparkle and give you the energy to keep going. You mentioned the story of the captain of Cathay Pacific who mentioned that. But then a couple of months ago, for example, we had an internal webinar for all our 180 volunteers. And one of our volunteers who works for recruiting all the volunteers, he had to present two slides during that webinar. But he never in his life presented slides before. So he had been rehearsing very hard on that. And I had to send him WhatsApp messages, go, look, you can do it, blah, blah, blah. And then he presented those slides and everything went fine. But then I thought, wow, what we're doing is kind of mentoring on the fly. We really empowering people and not as directly as purpose, but on the way, people really be changing people's lives and perspectives here. And I think that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? And we have so many of those messages but we get nearly on a daily basis that people say, wow, I'm so excited and looking forward to come to the gay games in Hong Kong. And people are preparing for that as well, because people need to prepare to participate in the sport. But we also have, for example, put a funding support program in place to provide people from all around the world who need financial support. We will give them free registration fees, flight tickets and accommodation. Via crowdfunding, we'll be able to give those people those entries. And this way, we really want to make the event inclusive as possible. And reading the applications from people from all around the world, telling them why they want to come to the gay games, why they are so inspired, that really gives me sometimes tears in my eyes and reminding me why we're doing what we're doing. For example, we're talking to a football team in Cambodia. It's a lesbian/transgender football team of 15 people. And lesbian and transgender in Cambodia is quite blurred, actually. When people have short hair, they're called lesbian, and he and she is kind of combined. But imagine that we get the football team from Cambodia to participate at the gay games. That's one of our goals, because I'm looking forward to seeing them walking into the stadium and to participate in 7.0. Because I really believe that we're able to change those people's lives, but also their perspectives and other perspectives, and changing this and telling stories, right? Because the games is all about the stories and how it changed their lives and views all along this journey.
This is beautiful. And I would love to continue talking for hours with you. Really, I want to everyone who is interested in learning more, I also want to encourage them to reach out to you to hear more of those stories and maybe even become part of this community, right? This amazing community. And I can relate to that when you're organizing something big together. And I was part of the organizing committee for TEDx Teen How Women for a few years. And it's not as, that's not comparably with the scale of it. But what it does is really to create this, it's like you said, it's like once you're part of this community, it lasts. Like there are these ripple effects and these connections that you're making there within that community. I mean, they last a lifetime. So that is so powerful. And, I thank you for all you do, for all the hard work you put in, all the volunteering hours that you're actually bringing this here and inviting people to join in. How could they could they just join in to volunteer? What are the people kind of like you're looking for? If you give us an insight, how does a day as a volunteer then look?
Emery, you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you a bit of overview about, what kind of teams you can be in. But of course, sports is kind of the main focus of the games. We have 36 sports, and we try to have at least two to kind of 4 coordinators per sport. So if you have that for 36, that's already takes you up to about sort of 70, 80 people, right? And of course, we still have different teams that I'm also part of. So, for example, I'm also part of the local outreach team. Can you hear the sirens?
Oh, we can, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that's all right.
Okay.
Coming to us from the quarantine hotel.
Yes, quarantine hotel.
That's how it is. Yeah.
So where was I? So I'm also part of multiple teams at the moment. So football is kind of the first thing that I got involved in, organizing a football tournament. Then I joined the local outreach team. Basically, it's a team where we want, because the games traditionally has always been obviously in the US and Europe, right? As Dennis mentioned earlier. So we really want to make sure that if we're going to have an event in Hong Kong, we have to make sure it caters to the people in Hong Kong and across Asia. So we have a dedicated team basically who runs that. So what our team basically does is running different events, spreading the word of what gay games is in Asia, because of South Asia, we know there's a lot more, I guess, communication, a lot more advertisement and more education to do as well. And I'm also within that. I sit on the kind of the Trans Advisory Council, making sure, the forms, registration forms, people come over to visit to Hong Kong. Everything is very inclusive. The language we use, the venues we use, we have, we'll try our best to have gender neutral toilets and things like that. So there's literally what you can think of that happens in an event. We will have a team for it. We have a marketing team, we have a PR team, we have all this kind of stuff that runs behind the scenes. So, I don't think, have to be a specialist in one area. I think if you just want to volunteer because you believe in the values of gay games, we have people in the team who doesn't do any sports. Equally, I was pleasantly surprised at that as well, that they're also allies in the volunteering organization, because one would assume you have to be gay to be part of this community, but in fact the message we're bringing is that anyone, you can participate in terms of being a spectator, you can be as an athlete, or you can actually volunteer, and again, that doesn't there's no restrictions. You can literally be anyone to help us out as well. So there's definitely no particular look or profile they would look for. It's basically anyone, I would say, we welcome that wants to put in a couple of hours a week. The commitment hours, of course, with Dennis, he puts in long hours, more than a full-time job. I put a couple of hours there and there. So is what you can pull in and what you feel comfortable with, that we always welcome to.
And allies are very important, right? Because it's quite inspiring to have allies who are willing to put their neck out to be involved and to give their support in his. And I truly believe in the power of allies, because with including them, be able to make a positive impact. And you earlier mentioned our tagline, unity in diversity, and Emery talked earlier about diversity. And I also believe in a unity element here. We all know what happened in Hong Kong for the last couple of years, and having unity is a very important element, because it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're yellow or blue or pink or purple, let's everybody together in an event that's bigger than ourselves, and to celebrate unity in diversity, because we want to have some fun. We want to celebrate something, and let's celebrate that. And so I really believe in that element there.
Yeah, the past 2 years. Sorry, the past 2 years Hong Kong had. I think it's safe to say that no matter what you think about what's gone on, I think we all need a bit of a fun event to happen some point soon, right? And what amazing timing!
Yeah. I was just about to say that as well. Like, we all need to, we need some laughter, we need some fun. And when I'm looking at the opening ceremony, for example, from the last gay games in Paris, you can really tell like it's gonna be amazing. It's so exciting that this atmosphere that you experienced for the first time in '98, Dennis, that got you all really, really fired up about this community spirit, will be happening here as well. It's gonna be wonderful, and I'm thrilled to see it come to life. And of course, we here at Hashtag Impact will follow all the way up to what's happening, so that we can keep our community updated as well as things are, taking more and more shape. And I always, my guests, they always have to go, have to go through the quick fire round with me to wrap up our session. And actually, I do it a little bit differently today, because why not? Actually, I want to kick it off with a little bit of a quote here, beautiful quote, because Emery, you shared this with me beforehand as well. That almost I could just leave that standing there as the final conclusion of it, but actually I then will ask you some more fire questions. But what you said, Emery, is that having more understanding in the world's problems, driving everyone to make change, even if that battle has nothing to do with them. I love that. Yeah. So here's the unity again, and here are my quick fire questions for you. Making an impact means, Dennis.
Making an impact means willing to put your neck out. Yeah, make you put your neck out, willing to roll up your sleeves. Yeah, use your heart and listen to your heart and use your brains.
Love it. Emery?
Impact means helping a cause that doesn't necessarily have to do with you. It could be a very selfless thing that you just because you want to make an impact because you believe in the value for everyone else.
Who inspires you in the way they are tackling the sustainable development goals, or in general, someone making an impact with their work?
For me, I've been really in touch. I've been following a lot of what Brene Brown and Simon Sinek doing at the moment. I listen to all their podcasts and reading their books. There's a lot to catch up on, but the message is basically everyone is different, and you can only create your own path that suits you.
I think the founder of the Gay Games, Dr. Tom Modell, I think he passed away after the second Gay Games. Unfortunately, of another epidemic that time, the HIV and AIDS epidemic. So the HIV and AIDS is a very important element of the Gay Games, where we, as part of memorial, where we think of everybody who passed away at that time. And there are a couple of videos still of him where he talks about his vision of the Gay Games, what he wanted to, and why he started this, and what he wanted to give back to the community. I think that's quite inspiring, and that's quite, even 40 years later, is still quite resembling in many, many ways.
Mm. And what could everyone do right now to make the world a better place?
Register for the Gay Games as a volunteer or as anything.
Get involved at the Gay Games. Yeah, this is a once in our lifetime opportunity. Yeah, imagine that the Olympic Games will be coming to Hong Kong. Everybody will be jumping on the chairs and say, "I want to be involved." Right? So this is a different scale, but I mean, different experience. And on the other hand, it's a world-class event for the first time here. So get involved, like Emery said, right? Pre-register now. Start joining your sports team, or join us as a team. Join us as a volunteer on the team.
Yeah, please do that. Where should they go? Yeah, Emery, do you want to send them to where they should go?
Yeah, can I just add one more thing quickly?
Of course.
At the time of recording, last night it was the iconic win last night, right? With the fencing for Hong Kong. And I think
at the Olympic Games, Tokyo. So because our episodes are going to be listened to for years, they really are. So we are recording. What's the date today? 27th of July, and the Olympic Games Tokyo are just happening. Yes, please, let's bring that up.
Yeah, so I just want to say last night was the first gold medal that we had for Hong Kong since 25 years, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I think everyone can agree that since last night, the spirit it brought from one medal for that people who didn't really watch the Olympics, who didn't really do anything in sports, who just didn't really do anything in this community. But I think it's safe to say that it's brought everyone together. And I think, it really speaks volume of how sports, whether if you do sports or not, it really brings people together and it brings unity. And I think, of course, it's a different level, a different scale. But I think, there's going to be elements of the Gay Game that's going to bring a similar feeling, a similar environment for us in Hong Kong next year.
And then yesterday also Tom Daley got gold, right, in diving. And his quote was that, "I hope that any young LGBT person out there can see that no matter how alone you feel right now, you are not alone. You can achieve anything." And I think that's quite inspiring. Yeah. So I hope that the younger generation, those people who are stuck on the gym classroom, and they say, "Wow, yeah, Tom Daley wins gold. I also want to do that." Yeah. Sport will give me a sense of belonging.
So where can they go now? We are going to send all our listeners over now to your website. Where should they get in touch?
gghk2022.com.
I will repeat this now. Did I memorize it correctly? gghk2022.com. Yes. So, and we will put this, of course, in the show notes as well, in this description, so that you can easily click on it. Thank you so much for coming on #Impact. It was such an honor. Good luck with the next coming months, and with then making this massive impact with this biggest inclusive game.
So my last question to you is, what is your sport? And did you already pre-register, Regina?
Oh my goodness, nice. You're turning the tables now. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, what should I register for? So actually, I would say my sport is basketball. I'm a basketball girl. Yay.
Did you already pre-register?
I didn't.
Okay, just go to our website, djhk2022.com.
I'm gonna be there as the basketball
cheerleader.
I got a cheerleader. Yeah, that I can do as well. Yes, yeah. So I'm gonna be looking over there so that I can be part of it as well. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having
today.
us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, this was so fun. I hope you are heading over there right now to follow the journey of Gay Games Hong Kong. And I would also love to invite you to join #Impact Club. If you're listening now all the way to the end, then I have a feeling that you will love what we are doing over there. As a club member, you are not only supporting our production, making sure that we keep featuring all these inspiring voices that deserve to get heard, but also you will get access to our private LinkedIn community to connect with other changemakers, to our former guests, to our team, but also join us for virtual coffee breaks so we can really celebrate and inspire each other to keep going on our own change-making journeys. It's really such a nourishing place and the best community. I'm always so happy when I get to meet up with these brilliant people. So head over there to #impact.com/club. Thanks so much for joining today. Talk to you very soon. Bye.